Hey, tree sprites. Let's talk about this comment. The older I get, the more true I see the sentiment that in order to dehumanize others, you must first dehumanize yourself. This is so true and insightful. There are many, many layers to this, but the main one I want to touch on is how we are so disconnected from nature and our natural selves and just Gaia and the planet and the universe. Through these various robotic oppressive systems, we have become more and more mechanical and robotic and less free and alive and spiritual. You'll notice that on an individual level, when people experience abuse and neglect, either in their childhood or in their adulthood or both, and have been dehumanized on an individual personal level, they then tend to have very low tolerance for emotions, emotional expression of other people, and they also tend to have low compassion and low empathy and expect others to have high tolerance for stressful, hurtful, even painful circumstances. And what we don't acknowledge living under these oppressive systems is that we, on various levels, depending on your demographics, are experiencing wide scale neglect and abuse systemically throughout your entire life. And even though some demographics are more heavily affected than others, we are all impacted by these systems that are inherently anti-human. Even though patriarchy appears to benefit and prop up men, and white supremacy appears to benefit and prop up white people, these systems still require these groups to cut themselves off from their natural, emotional, feeling selves. Because in order to allow yourself to be used as a tool of oppression, you have to disconnect yourself from your humanity and from your connection to other human beings, and live in a state of continuously justifying and soothing your cognitive dissonance. Destructive power does come at a cost, especially in the case of white supremacy, where you are required to cut yourself off from your ancestral heritage in order to take up the mantle of the oppressive power structure. And I think that this is really the root of cultural appropriation, because at the core of our humanity, we desire connection, closeness, community, and belonging. And on the side of those that are targeted by oppression, because these systems strive to dehumanize the targets in order to commit atrocities against them, it creates an environment where it's actually easier for marginalized people to connect with each other. Like, even though much of the world disparages Black Americans, the world is also very influenced by Black American culture. Even though much of the world is indoctrinated by American white supremacy to discriminate against us, people at the same time can't help but be inspired by our vitality and creativity. Another very significant concept that I've been learning about recently is the idea of tumescence. I've been in community with a group of amazing women, and we have been reading this book called The Eros Sutra, Tumescence, by Nicole Dadon. I'm not honestly sure how to pronounce that name, but this book is incredible. It basically identifies the invisible force that separates human beings from our humanity, from our natural wild selves, that causes us to repress our own human nature in order to uphold these systems of power. I'm just going to read a couple lines from this book. What holds all of us back is a force that culturally suppresses our wild self. Gripped by a condition we don't understand, this force has a habit of ruining so many chances for happiness. I have come to understand that this force is known as tumescence. Tumescence is what's behind picking a fight with our beloved, the vitality of Eros that ought to be used to power creative energy, and to build connection and intimacy is stultified. We feel stuck, as if holding our breath. In every dimension of our lives, tumescence is a barrier that blocks our ability to enjoy pleasure. And this is not just referring to sensual or physical pleasure. It is also referring to spiritual pleasure, to our desire for liveliness and connection and enjoyment of life and fun. It is that spark of life and light that we see in children that is gradually snuffed out in order to shape and mold them, and so that they can be another block, another cog in the machine. I highly recommend everybody get and read this book and just think about and consider the ways that tumescence is interfering with your connection with self and with nature and the universe, and the ways that we can possibly begin to break down these barriers between us and our own natural human selves. Because the only answer to dehumanizing is rehumanizing. I know that's not a real word, but you know what I mean. Go deep and find yourself.